Chapter 1, The Day He Moved In. They said it was only temporary. 3 months, maybe 4, just long enough for Evan to finish his final portfolio for art school and get his own place. Mark, my husband, had promised it wouldn't disrupt our lives. He's practically family, he'd said. Besides, you'll like him. Evan was Mark's godson, though I'd heard Mark refer to him as his boy so often that I half expected some kind of family resemblance. There wasn't. Mark was broad-shouldered, gregarious, and loud in the way only former college football players could be. Evan was none of that. He arrived on a gray April afternoon, wearing a worn denim jacket with paint on the cuffs, his portfolio case slung over one shoulder. He had that air some artists carry, like he was half watching the world and half translating it in his head. "You must be Clara," he said, shaking my hand. His grip was warm, deliberate, not too long, not too short. He looked directly into my eyes, and it startled me. Most people glance away after a beat. Evan didn't. "Welcome," I said, motioning toward the hallway. "We've set you up in the guest room. Kitchen's down here, bathrooms across the hall. Mark's at work, but he'll be home in a couple hours." He nodded, glancing around the house as if cataloging it, sunlight spilling through the kitchen windows, the bookshelves lining the living room wall, the plant in the corner I always forgot to water. It was subtle, but I noticed, he was studying. Chapter 2, The First Ask. 2 weeks in, we'd found a quiet rhythm. I worked from home editing manuscripts, and he spent most of his days in the garage-turned-studio Mark had cleared out for him. He'd leave the door open when the weather was good, and I'd sometimes hear the faint scrape of charcoal or the soft swish of a brush in water. One Friday afternoon, I wandered in with a mug of tea. He was hunched over a sketchpad, the late light from the window catching on his hair. "Do you ever run out of things to draw?" I asked. He glanced up, smiling faintly. "Not really. But I'm stuck right now. I need a model. Someone who isn't trying to be one." I laughed. "You mean someone not sucking in their stomach or pretending their face doesn't have wrinkles?" "Exactly." He leaned back in his chair. "You'd be perfect." The words landed in my chest like a small stone dropped in still water. "Me?" "You've got stories in your face," he said, almost shyly. "Not everyone does. I want to paint that." I should have said no. But something in his tone, earnest, curious, almost reverent, made me agree. Chapter 3, The First Sitting. We set up by the big north-facing window in the studio. Evan fussed with the angle of the chair, the way the light hit my cheek. I sat there feeling strangely exposed, not because of my clothes, but because of his eyes. He wasn't just looking at me. He was seeing me. Every tilt of my head, every flicker of expression, every pause in my breathing seemed to register with him. We didn't talk much that first session. The only sounds were the scrape of charcoal and the occasional creak of the chair when I shifted. After an hour, he stepped back and let out a quiet breath. "Yeah," he murmured. "This will work." I didn't see the sketch. I didn't need to. Something had already shifted between us. Chapter 4, Becoming the Muse. Over the next weeks, the sittings became our ritual. Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, I'd settle into the chair, and he'd work, sometimes in charcoal, sometimes in oil. We talked more now. He asked about my favorite books, my childhood in the Midwest, the jobs I'd had before editing. In turn, he told me about growing up with a mother who worked double shifts, about discovering painting in high school, about feeling like art was the only place he could breathe. Somewhere in there, I stopped thinking of it as helping Evan with his portfolio and started feeling something else. He noticed things no one else did, the way I curled my toes when I was nervous, how I tilted my head when I was remembering something. He captured those things in his work, and seeing them on the canvas felt like being known in a way I hadn't realized I craved. Chapter 5, The Portrait. It was raining the day he finished the main portrait. The studio smelled faintly of turpentine and wet air. "Close your eyes," he said, turning the easel toward me. When I opened them, my breath caught. It was me, but not the me I saw in the mirror every morning. This woman had light in her eyes, a half-smile that hinted at secrets, and a kind of strength I hadn't claimed for myself in years. "That's not just me," I said quietly. "That's how I see you," he replied. His voice was low, almost rough. "You didn't just pose. You gave me something to paint." Chapter 6, Lines We Didn't Cross. We never spoke about the tension humming between us, but it was there, in the charged silences, the way his gaze lingered a beat too long, the way I found myself thinking about our sessions even when I wasn't in the studio. Mark never noticed. Or maybe he did and didn't care, trusting us both. Either way, Evan and I kept the boundary intact, at least on the surface. But in the quiet of those afternoons, I felt like I'd stepped into another life, one where being someone's muse meant being truly alive. Chapter 7, The Exhibition. When the school term ended, Evan's final portfolio was selected for a gallery show in the city. He invited me to the opening. Walking through the exhibit, I saw myself again and again, different angles, different moods, different colors. But in every single one, there was that same light in my eyes. Other guests murmured about the woman in the paintings, asking who she was. Evan only smiled and said, "She's my muse." Chapter 8, After. He moved out 2 weeks later, renting a small studio apartment downtown. We stayed in touch, coffee now and then, the occasional text. But every time I caught a glimpse of myself in a mirror, I remembered the woman he'd painted. The woman with stories in her face and light in her eyes. And though life went back to its normal rhythm, a part of me would always belong to that studio, to those afternoons, and to the man who once looked at me and saw not just who I was, but who I could be.